Well, we are happy to be here today with nutritionist Karen Hurd. It's a great honor to have a chance to have her share her expertise and information with our audience. Karen is a practicing nutritionist that has helped over thousands of people across the country and even in other countries across the globe heal themselves using nutritional strategies. And what better way to kind of get some of this important information out to you than to speak to Karen herself. So thank you so much for being here and joining us today, Karen.
Absolutely. It's my honor.
Definitely. So I thought we could start off with a little bit of your story. I know your family's experience is a tremendous story of resilience, in particular with your daughter, Ruth. So if you don't mind sharing how you turned to nutrition as a way to ultimately heal her immune system.
Well, many years ago, when my daughter was 18 months old, and she's 26 now, we lived in a home where people had come and my husband was a pastor of a church, and so they wanted to make a parsonage home for us, and so they laid the home with a carpet that had been in a man's garage for many years. And so unbeknownst to us and unbeknownst to them, it was full of carpet beetles that were in an egg form, and then they hatched out when the carpet was laid and the heat was turned on. And anyway, so we called an exterminator and had the exterminator come out to get rid of all the carpet beetles.
Sure.
Because there weren't just one or two, there were tens and thousands of them. And so, I asked, if this is going to be harmful to my little children, and they said, oh, no, this will be fine, and so you just leave the house for the day, come back, have the windows open, and it'll be fine. So, but it wasn't fine. And so, long story short, Ruth, this is my daughter, went into grand mal seizures. We were all sick. I had Kate and David at the same time, my husband and I, and we all became ill, but Ruth went into grand mal seizures. Wow. And so, of course, we rushed her to the hospital. They said it was a febrile seizure, although her temperature was only 100 degrees, and so they put her on phenobarbital. Well, not the first time, the second time they did. So anyway, they treated her for double pneumonia, because whenever you're exposed to a nerve agent, the particular exterminating agent that they used was a neurotransmitter, it's chlorpyrifos, so it works in the central nervous system of bugs and kills them. And so she ended up going back to the hospital the second time, because we took her back home, and she went into seizures again. So we spent several trips back and forth to the hospital. And then I brought to their attention that, could this be a bug poisoning type of thing? They said, no, couldn't be. And so finally I became convinced that it could be, had to be, and so then I got help from poison control centers and Dr. Sheldon Wagner out in Oregon, and he's a child toxicologist, and then we were able to prove to the chemical company, Dow Chemical, as well as to the doctors that it was a poisoning. And so, so it's not just ending there though. So now we had a very, very sick little girl who had less than 6 weeks to live, because her liver was so irreparably damaged.
6 weeks they gave her. Wow.
Yeah,
and this is at 18 months old?
At 18 months old, yeah. And so we took her to specialists in Chicago, saw specialists in St. Louis, conferred on the phone with specialists in Dallas, Texas, and they all said the same thing, that she is not going to make it. Wow. And I said, somebody help me, and there was no one. Sorry.
Oh, I know.
So, anyway, I decided I would study it and research it myself. And so that's what I did. And I took myself to the medical library there in St. Louis. It's Washington University Medical School. And I was not a medical student. I had a degree in Spanish, and I had been in the Army and had some chemical training in warfare, defense warfare in chemicals in the Army. So I knew some, but then I didn't know anything. And so I made myself familiar with the library and began to study, and what could I do to help my little girl. And so then I put together a nutritional plan for her. And she's 26 years old today.
It's amazing.
And so what happened is that people, they heard about this. This was a bit of a to-do. It's not a huge to-do, but a small to-do in the St. Louis area. We were living in that suburbs of the area, and it was in the newspaper that little girl was supposed to die and she didn't die, and so my name was not in the paper. There was no phone number, but I started getting phone calls. People find out this stuff and say, I have my father, my mother, my brother, my child, and my doctor can't help him. Well, what can I do to help them? And I say, I don't know.
You're like,
I don't know. And they said, well, would you try? And I said, well, I could go down in the library and read about it. I don't even know what these conditions are. And so that's the way it began. And so it just snowballed and snowballed until One Bell Tower, which is a huge skyscraper in downtown St. Louis. That's where Southwestern Bell had their headquarters, are now down in Texas, but at that time they were there. And they said, we've had so many people ask if you'd come give brown bag seminars, which is a lunchtime thing,
sure.
You know, your employees. And so they would gather 300 employees together, and I'd go once a week and give a seminar, and I'd just go to the library and study and figure out this is what I would do. But guys, I have no credentialing, I am nothing, I'm nobody. And so then Drury Inns asked me to do the same thing. Drury Inns is a hotel chain in St. Louis, to do seminars with their people and their employees. And then the St. Louis Catholic Parish, it's a big Catholic town, St. Louis, and asked if I would do the same thing and start to give lectures to the parent-teacher groups. And then finally the University of Missouri asked if I would teach, and I said, I don't have a degree. And they said, we know that, we'd like you to get one.
Wow.
So then I pursued getting a diploma in nutrition, and then my practice has just gone from there. It's 26 years ago.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That really is a great story.
Wow.
You know, full disclosure here, my entire family, myself included, we have all called Karen for help and advice. And in my case particularly, you know, I had foggy brain, I had the headaches, tingling, numbness, and then my stomach pain just got so bad. And I'll be honest with you, I called you after I exhausted every Western medical path possible and couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. So then my wife suggested I called you. And
I know, I'm like, hey, you should call Karen.
You know,
I think she could
knock on wood she did. And Karen was really the first person to set me down the path of, you know, to cure myself. And what she really taught me was to focus on nutritionally dense food, quality protein, and the soluble fiber. So I was really looking at nutrition from a whole different angle here. Lo and behold, things cleared up for me, and as a byproduct, I lost 30 pounds and my allergies disappeared. So, you know, now my question for you, with a little background about me, is, you know, what role does nutrition play in the body's ability to just heal itself?
It plays the most important role that there is, because every cell has to be nourished by some type of nutrient. If we don't have those nutrients, those cells will perish. The chemical reactions cannot happen. So in a sense, we starve without food. But what we've done is that we have taken foods that are not healthy, and we have consumed those, and then we wonder why we have this body that has got all kinds of problems. It's like putting diesel in the tank of your car. It'll run for a little while, and then it'll be knocking and have all kinds of problems, and you know, what's the matter with it? It's a fuel. Diesel's a fuel. Why can't it run on fuel? Well, why can't we run on Kool-Aid? Why can't we run on sweets? We're not meant to run on those things. So nutrition is at the basis of our health. If we don't have good nutrition, we will not have good health. That's the bottom line.
Absolutely. You know, you talk a lot about soluble fiber, quality proteins, and vegetables to get your vitamins and minerals. Can you, for our audience, expand upon the importance of all of the major components to a healthy diet?
There's several. So protein, absolutely critical. Every cell in your body is made out of protein. Your DNA are sequenced with proteins that are combined in 3-member combinations. If we do not have adequate proteins, then we cannot have a cell structure. And so we're confused about proteins in our country. We say beans are protein, we say dairy products are proteins, and we can combine we can combine two foods and make them into a complete protein. But what we have forgotten is that we have to have efficient proteins. We have to have something that is chemically viable that we can work with. And when we put something in our body, like if we put in, let's put in beans. We put beans in our body, which beans are good food, but they're not a protein. They have proteins in them. They have certain amino acids in them, but they don't have the complete set of amino acids. when we look at amino acids, it's like looking at an alphabet. There are 26 letters in an alphabet, and you have the vowels A, E, I, O, U, and Y, sometimes, and W. And we can take all these vowels and the rest of the consonants, and we can make hundreds of thousands, many, many, many words out of those just 26 letters. What if we remove the A and the E? We're going to miss a lot of words.
A lot of words.
A lot of words are gone. And so what we have to do is, in the protein amino acid library or alphabet, there are 19, and then there's 22, and we keep discovering new proteins all the time because we don't have all knowledge yet. And I don't think we ever will, but we have to keep learning. And so we have certain ones, we have 8 that are absolutely have to have essential amino acids. That if you don't have those, then you can't put together all the words. If we don't have those 8 essential amino acids, we have all these massive protein molecules, are very large, cumbersome molecules, and we don't have all of the amino acids to put together certain protein molecules. So what happens? They don't get put together. They just don't happen. And so you say, well, if I take my beans and I know I'm missing certain things, certain amino acids, and I combine that with rice, then I'll have the other amino acids there together, and so then they will work together. But the problem is you have to remember these are all chemical reactions. And chemical reactions have to have catalysts to make things happen. We have to have enzymes present. We have to, oftentimes, we will have to go through 6, 7, 10, 15, 50 steps, 50 different little chemical reactions to get to the end product. And when we're talking about inefficient proteins, these are proteins that do not have all the amino acids present, or that's an incomplete protein, or an inefficient protein. There are amino acids that are very hard for us to access and get to and be able to utilize, because we have to go through so many more chemical reactions to get to that place. Then we're in trouble, because we will use tremendous amounts of energy to be able to make a protein work. It's like It's
interesting.
It's like, you know, you could just go out to the store and you can buy a finished product. You can buy the dresser. You want a dresser for your room, just go buy the dresser. It's done. It's really easy. Or you can buy all the lumber, and you got to get all the little tools, you know, to get all the little curves, and you got to get the mitering box so you can get all the little, you know, things to fit together, and you can still get a dresser, but it will take you a tremendous amount more effort. And it's the same thing that happens in the body with if you eat efficient proteins, of which there are only 5: eggs, meat, poultry, fish, and seafood. That's it. Those are the only ones, at least, we eat in our country. There are a few others in other countries. You can eat bugs. We don't usually eat bugs here. You can eat ox blood. They do that in Ethiopia, but we don't usually eat blood here. And so, but those are complete proteins also. And so what we do is we have so undermined our health by not eating these efficient proteins, by eating substitute little ones over here, that we have to work so hard to turn them into something. And we will go through, I say, you know, 5, 10, yeah, you can close the door, 5, 10, 15, 20, 100 different chemical reactions. And what people don't understand is for every chemical reaction that happens, you have to have a certain amount of activation energy to put into that reaction. Chemical reactions, if you put all the little pieces all in the same area, there has to be something that's going to drive this reaction forward. So we have what we call the reactants. We're putting that into this, and then you're going to have some also catalysts and enzymes coming into, and then you shoot out a product at the end. That's how all chemical reactions happen. But you have to get a certain amount of activation energy to get this chemical reaction off the ground. And it has to, in chemistry, we have a little diagram where there's a hump that you have to get over the hump, and you have enough energy to get over the hump to make the reaction come through. Well, the more reactions that you have, the more energy that you need.
Okay.
It's classic. I talk to vegetarians all the time. They say, I get all my protein. I'm combining my proteins. It's like, you're going to be exhausted, and they all are. They're so tired. They're so tired. Oftentimes, I will have a vegetarian after just 2 weeks of just saying, you've got to just, if you have a problem with, you know, harming animals and killing animals, okay, I'm not going to make any comments about that, but you could at least eat an egg. An egg is, no, if not fertilized, it's not really a animal yet. And at least eat your eggs 3 times a day. They usually call me within 2 weeks and say, I cannot believe the energy I have. What have I been doing for the last 15 years? because they finally have an efficient protein. It only takes 1, 2 maybe chemical reactions to make this work instead of dozens and hundreds of chemical reactions, so you're not wasting your energy on trying to make a food usable.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, the flip side of that, though, too, is I was an athlete through college, and all they fed us was protein. That's all I ate. My diet consisted of a dozen eggs for breakfast, 6 or 7 chicken breasts, and about 6 cans of tuna. That's not healthy for you either.
No, you got to have a balance, because then you can go into something called ketosis, which is not enough carbohydrates in your diet, and then we have to convert proteins into a carbohydrate. So we don't want to do that either. So proteins are important. Another thing is we have left out soluble fiber. Soluble fiber is a key piece in all of people's lives, and we are one of the few countries who do not eat soluble fiber on a regular basis. Other countries eat it 2, 3, 6 times a day, but we don't. Soluble fiber is found in legumes, and the beauty of soluble fiber is that it has the capacity to bind with something called bile. It's fatty acids is what it binds with. Your bile fluids are made out of fatty acids. And the bile that we produce is made here in your liver. And the liver makes bile so that it can carry out the fat-soluble waste. You see, we're chemical beings. The number of chemical reactions per nanosecond is just incredible. I mean, it can't even be measured. It's so many.
Wow.
And so every chemical reaction that happens, there's the potential to have a waste product. And almost every chemical reaction, there is a waste product. So we have all these, we call it metabolic waste. So we have all this metabolic waste, and so fat-soluble metabolic waste is cleared out of your bloodstream by the liver. Water-soluble is taking care of the kidneys, that's another story. So with the liver pulling out all this fat-soluble waste, what does it do with it? Put it back in the bloodstream? No, we have to discard it.
Get it out of the body.
We have to get it out of the body. Well, what plumbing connection does the liver have to get it out of the body? Well, it sends things from the liver down little biliary ducts, which are tubes that lead down, and some goes to the gallbladder, but eventually the gallbladder empties into this part of you, which is the duodenum. And the duodenum is the first part of the small colon. That should already be telling you, hey, if we're in the first part of the small colon, this is a gastrointestinal tract, we're going to weave down through, we're eventually going to have a bowel movement out of this. And that's how the liver gets rid of all the fat-soluble waste. Is through having
well, and that's what we discovered, when Mike called you originally. He was having such severe stomach pain, and you said, well, this must be a spasm of your duodenum. It's backed up, and that's, I think, ultimately, kind of what started his whole awareness about the digestive issue and the importance of the soluble fiber.
And of course, now I eat beans 3 times a day.
All of us should be eating beans 3 times a day. It's so highly important. These bile fluids that are coming down are made out of fats because the liver is clearing fat-soluble waste out of the bloodstream. And so when you have something that's fat-soluble, that means it has to be put into a fat carrier. So these are all chemical reactions, again, that are happening. And so then with this fat carrier, then it becomes bile. Bile fluids are fat molecules. Soluble fiber, which is found in beans, loves to bind with fats. There's a chemical attraction there between positive and negative charges in these molecules, and then they will make a bond, a very strong bond. And then this bond can't be broken. And so all of this bile and all of the beans, the soluble fiber in the beans, travel through your gastrointestinal tract and reach the last part of your small colon, which is right down here. It's called the terminal part of the ileum. And there's something very interesting happens. We absorb fats. So if bile is made out of fat, does that mean bile absorbs the terminal part of the ileum? And the answer is yes, absolutely. All fats are absorbed right here. Not in the mouth, not in the stomach, not in the duodenum, not in the jejunum. So then, as we absorb the fats and we absorb our own bile, then all of the fat-soluble waste just got dumped back into your bloodstream. This is a problem. But if it's bound up with soluble fiber, no fiber, soluble, insoluble, no fiber can cross the intestinal barrier. And so all of this insoluble fiber, which we're not worried about, it goes on through the gastrointestinal tract, and the soluble fiber, which is bound up with the bile, bile is saying, I gotta absorb here, and the soluble fiber is saying, no, you don't. We're going through the ileocecal valve and moving into large colon, and we're going to go out in the form of a bowel movement because I can't cross the intestinal barrier. We throw your bile away. If you throw your bile away, you throw away your fat-soluble waste. If you don't throw away your bile, 90 to 95% of it recycles, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
Well, and you talk about that's metabolic waste. That also includes when you have toxicity in all sorts of fashions, correct? I mean, that's not just the waste from the chemical reactions within the body. That's the waste from your food. That's the waste from...
Yeah, it's definitely from your food. We get caught up into this whole organic issue and, you know, genetically modified foods. People, that's non-consequential. I know that might be flying in the face of what some of the people want to hear is non-consequential. And so the vast majority, if you know, it's from the floor to the ceiling, is waste products that are fat soluble. 99.99% of it is your own metabolic waste. All the rest of it is this little bit of chemicals from your, you know, the food that was raised without, you know, using natural fertilizers. The vast majority of it is your own metabolic waste and your own hormones. Your hormones are vast amount of waste, but that's part of your own metabolic waste.
That's what I was gonna share with our audience. Part of your help with our daughter, who was experiencing seizures as well, is making that connection to the hormone adrenaline and looking at her lifestyle and seeing how, when you were constantly go, 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 that adrenaline has that hormone output. Like you said, that's a huge component of this waste that needs to be cleared out of the body.
Absolutely. And if you can't clear your adrenaline waste, these hormones are catalysts. That means they trigger a chemical reaction to happen without losing the integrity of their own molecule. So they reach out, they trigger it, and they go right back into their own molecule shape. And so they don't disappear, they endure. Every molecule of hormones that we make endures. And so if they recycle, they just go back into the bloodstream and make more chemical reactions happen. And not all of the chemical reactions that these hormones are making happen are good. If you continue to trigger a breast cell to grow, because that is done by a hormone, or an endometrial cell, or a cell on an ovary, and you say grow, it's like poking it, grow. That's what these catalysts are doing. Estrogen I'm speaking about specifically now. And you have such large amounts of estrogen, you're constantly stimulating these cells to grow. Well, they do grow. They grow past what the DNA says to grow. And so they grow these oddball little dysplasia cells. Well, what's dysplasia? It's a precursor to cancer. And now we have estrogen-fed cancers. And it's because we never got rid of our estrogen because we recycled it over and over. Why didn't we break up the recycling? Because we didn't eat beans, because beans, we don't like beans. No one ate them. So.
Yeah, very interesting. And what's another component? I know vegetables, because of the vitamins and the minerals, are a key element in a healthy diet.
Absolutely.
Healthy nutrition plan.
Yeah, our vegetables, they have a lot of the phytonutrients in them. They have more phytonutrients in them than our fruits do. Fruits come with a ton of sugar, and the vegetables have all those nutrients with 10 times less sugar, so our vegetables are really key. And they also have minerals. Our beans, not only do they have the soluble fiber, but they are one of the richest sources of minerals that we have too.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Any other components that you view as crucial? Well,
Water,
definitely stay hydrated. Absolutely.
And have water. And people get really confused about that too, and they think, oh, you have to, you know, get water with minerals in it. Did you know you have to drink a bathtub full of water to get enough minerals for just the bare daily minimal amount of minerals that you would need? Nobody's going to drink a bathtub full of water.
No.
Our minerals come from our foods. They come from our beans and from our vegetables. Some of them also come from our different meats and proteins too.
And speaking of water, I know it's helpful for our audience to learn about tap water versus other types of water. And what is your take on that, or your opinion on which is the best type of water?
A filtered water that we filtered the chlorine out of. And don't be mad at your municipality for putting chlorine in the water, because if they didn't, we'd all be dead of waterborne disease a long time ago. We are sharing, there's only so much water on the planet. We're always, every kid in science studies the water cycle and, you know, how it rains and then it evaporates and all. We have a certain amount of water, and it just is always here. And if it becomes polluted with a waterborne disease, it will kill us. And so what our cities have done is that they have put chlorine into the water to kill these bacteria, and they have to. But we, as an individual consumer, we need to filter out that chlorine so that chlorine is a carcinogenic substance. Nobody argues the fact. It's known science that we know that chlorine can cause cancer. And so we have to have our own little filter at home to filter out the chlorine that our cities are putting in. And then if you have a well, then you don't have to worry about it, because then you have you don't, unless a person's dumping chlorine down their well, and they usually don't do that.
Yeah.
So.
And what about the fluoride component to water? That's
Fluoride,
another big...
boy, it's can of worms.
Yes.
Okay. Fluoride is known to prevent dental caries, which means cavities in your teeth. I do not deny fluoride's efficacy in that area. It certainly can do that. However, if we think that chlorine causes cancer, we're just laughing at a little baby toy, because fluoride is a major, major carcinogenic substance. And so if you're worried about having dental caries in your teeth, then stop eating sugar, because that's what's breaking down the enamel and causing your dental caries. Eat a healthy diet and you're not going to have any cavities in your teeth. And that's what we need to do, instead of saying, okay, well, you're going to do the fluoride rinses and, you know, the fluoride toothpaste, and we're going to put fluoride in our water. We have to filter the fluoride out too, because right now cancer is up and running. I mean, I've read so many different stats. At one time it was the #1 killer of Americans. Now it's back to #2 killer of Americans. But the latest stat I read is 1 out of 3 people will have cancer in our country, and that is pathetic. Everybody knows several people that have cancer, and you're always afraid, when's it going to be me? When's the shoe going to drop, you know? And it's because we're exposed to carcinogenic substances constantly. It's in our water. So filter your water.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let me change subjects a little bit here, because at Hinman Holistic Health Institute, we're focused on the family dynamic and, you know, being parents, specifically the children as well. So one of the questions I have for you is how does the food that children eat specifically affect their ability to focus, learn, feel, et cetera, et cetera?
I was thinking of a woman I talked to today. She was telling me, I just can't give up my sweets. I just can't, I can't. I won't. And she says, you know, and my child, she loves Lucky Charms, so I have to give her Lucky Charms every morning for breakfast. And this is a very sugared, highly sugared cereal. And unfortunately, we start our kids off with these sugared cereals in the morning, or a donut, or a Pop-Tart, or, you know, some pastry. And these sugars, what they're doing is they make a very a detrimental effect on a system called the endocrine system. The endocrine system produces hormones for you, but specifically the adrenal system produces something called adrenaline. It's epinephrine and norepinephrine, the actual 2 names of the hormones, but we call them adrenaline. When you give a person sugar, they're going to have a shot of adrenaline. They're full of energy. They're ready to go. They are ready to take the world by its tail and swing it. But the problem is that you hit that gland really hard to make it produce that adrenaline. And so the gland becomes tired out, because you keep pushing it to make adrenaline. And it becomes so fatigued that after a time, then it can't produce the adrenaline for you. So what do? You have to have sugar or caffeine. But with the children, we aren't giving them caffeine, and mostly until they get a little older, then we start on the sodas. But then on the sugar front, we are feeding our children sugar all the time. And all we've done is we've destroyed their intellect, because they'll get to the point where they can't think. You cannot think on sugar. You are not able to put your thoughts together and focus them well. You feel like you read a paragraph in the book and you can't even remember what you just read. You're listening to the teacher and everything is just, you know, it's just noise in the background. You're not even understanding a word that they're saying. And so what we have done is that we have robbed our children of the intellectual ability that they could access and learn so many things. And we grow up, we have a whole generation of growing up kids that feel stupid because they weren't able to pay attention.
So how do you explain that the brain uses glucose as energy? So wouldn't someone, you know, who would say, well, wait a second, I thought the brain needs sugar so that it can have energy.
So without blood glucose, you cannot produce the neurotransmitters. And in the brain, you have neural fibers, and one neural fiber is not connected to another neural fiber. There's a space, and that space is called a synaptical gap. And at the end of each neural fiber, we have cells that will secrete neurotransmitters to fill that gap. If you fill the gap, then electricity can cross from here to here. See, otherwise there's not a conductive fluid. There has to be a material in this gap to make the electricity flow. And that's how our brains work, is through electricity. We're biochemical beings that are that are electrical. And so in our brain, if we don't have sugar, the cells that are making these neurotransmitters in the brain use glucose for a fuel. And if we don't have enough glucose, then you will not have the neurotransmitter, therefore the electricity will not cross, and therefore the thought does not happen. It's just not there. It's just a blank. And so we have to have sugar, but then we say, oh, well, good, then I can eat sugar. But the problem is that when we provide sugar, that there is so much sugar, there's so many neurotransmitters going to be produced that we are getting too many messages, and we can be hyper, we can have anxiety attacks, you just jump at anything, or you feel panicky, or you're so overly sensitive, don't touch me, all these, it's too many neurotransmitters, it's too much traffic, it's like listening to 15 radio stations all at once and trying to hear everything that they're saying. It's just too much, and you have to shut down and back off. So if you get too much sugar in the brain, it's called diabetic. It's a diabetic episode. You can go into a diabetic coma and you're dead in 6 minutes. That's too much sugar. It's like flooding the engine on a car, or flooding the engine on your lawnmower. You say, well, I gave the car all this gasoline. It runs on gasoline. But you gave it so much, you drowned the engine out. And you killed it. And if you give your brain too much sugar, you will drown the brain out and you will kill your brain. And so it's not a good thing. And so your body's always fighting against that happening. So if you eat a bunch of sugar, you say, well, I eat a bunch of sugar and my brain hasn't died. That's because you have an endocrine system that's producing insulin for you, which is a powerful hormone to pull all your blood sugars down.
Yep.
And so then it pulls the blood sugars down. What does it do with all this sugar? It converts it into something known as a triacylglycerol, which is a type of cholesterol. And it stores it into a fat cell, and it also raises your blood cholesterol levels. I mean, it's just ridiculous what we're doing. Whereas your body's always going to try to protect itself and, come up with an alternative. And so we just depend on the body to do that. And then we wonder why we're so sick. It's because the body is just working like a house afire to try to correct all these poor choices that you've made. And so we destroy our children's health. Oh, give Johnny a candy bar. He deserves it. He deserves it like he deserves a hole in the head. Every parent should never give their children, no one should be giving their children sweets, and you shouldn't be eating them either. You're not doing them a favor. You're just setting them up to be the same ill and unhealthy person that you are. Let's just walk in the steps of mommy and daddy and be sick too.
Yeah, it's I will say from a parent, it's a pretty tough position to be in because it's so pervasive. You are so surrounded constantly, and you struggle with the emotional piece of it too. Like you talk about adrenaline's being released. The kids themselves feel deprived when it's so pervasive in their environment 24/7. So then there's I'm just speaking kind of off the cuff from my personal experience, and being that we worked with you for a number of my daughters, we know that physical chemical reaction, but it's also balancing that with the hormonal reaction of feelings of deprivation and isolation, and those can, how do you navigate that, or do you have any thoughts about that?
You teach them, and you can never make a person eat something or not eat something. That cannot be forced. That's why you should never say you have to eat this, or you cannot. All you can do is just teach them and say these things are bad. Offer your kids rewards. You say, okay, the teacher said if you got 100% on your spelling words, then she's going to give you a candy bar. Bring the candy bar home for me. I will pay you 50 cents for it, or $1, or whatever, the kid's age, whatever. Or you give me 10 of the treats that they're giving you at school, then I'm going to buy you want this American doll, or you want to have the older kids. You want an iPhone? Okay, you can earn your iPhone. Bring me home all the treats, And I've got kids that are doing this.
I never thought about that. That's interesting.
I got a 12-year-old. He's slick. He's going to be really good in economics, because he's going to school and saying, because his parents are paying him $1 for every candy bar, every treat that he brings home. He says to his friends, I'll buy that from you for 50 cents. And they're like, good deal, because mom just gave it to me, my lunch. He pays 50 cents, he takes it home, cashes in for $1.
That's not a bad deal, right?
Yes, but you know what? He's not eating any sweets. He's not eating sweets.
And he's helping his friends out too.
And what does mom and dad do? What do you do with all the sweets? Throw it in the trash. Don't give it to some food pantry and curse somebody with it. Throw it away.
Yeah.
Get rid of it.
Yeah.
So it's rewards and teaching them. And then they're going to grow up and they're going to make their own decisions. They'll say, I'm going to eat this stuff, and then they'll learn. I feel horrible when I eat this way. And so then they'll learn on their own. But while you have them in the home, There should be no birthday cake. There should be no ice cream. You should, what do you want for your birthday meal? Your favorite meal is, my kids was always egg rolls. Well, then we'll have egg rolls. And so you can put candles in egg rolls. We've done it all you can put candles in anything.
Yeah.
And so there weren't any treats or sweets.
Definitely. I like that idea of the reward. It's just reward in a different way. You know,
Oh, yeah.
That's a good idea. To kind of wrap up here, I know that you have literally changed people's lives thousands of times over. Do you have a story or one that stands out that is just very inspirational that you'd be willing to share, obviously in an anonymous way, but something that just really was impactful to experience?
There's so many of them. Every day I hear the words, this is a miracle, this is a miracle. I can't believe it, it's a miracle. I'll think about one. Actually, she's going to be on the radio with us next week. She's a physical therapist. She lives in Kansas. I think it's Kansas, and it's another state, but I think it's Kansas. And they were spending $500 a month on purchasing supplements so that she could feel well, because she didn't have any energy. She couldn't take care of her children. She wasn't able to run her physical therapy practice because of her fatigue. And so they were doing everything, because we turn to pills. We're always turning to pills. Take another pill. Can we just turn to food? Just turn to food. That's all we have to do. And so I always think about her as, I told her it's going to take us 18 to 24 months, because she was totally, her adrenal glands were worn out. She'd beaten them up with caffeine and sugar and all the things that we're trying to avoid. And so we take all that away. You have to go through withdrawal. And so as we approach the 18-month mark, she's well. She's so very well. She's back to doing her full PT practice, even teaching her clients that come in for their physical therapy appointments about good nutrition. But she said the best point of it is, Karen, my husband is so happy because we used to spend $500 a month. Do you know how much we spend on supplements now? Zero. And I am healthier. I never got healthy on these supplements, but now I am healthy just because I'm just eating the right foods. Yeah. So I know there's all kinds of modalities of health. You know, you can do a medical doctor, and we need them. I'm not knocking any field. We need all of us. We need to just come together and work together as a team, you know, and bring our expertise in each different areas. But we have MDs, we have chiropractors, we have reflexologists, we have nutritionists, we have osteopaths, we have naturopaths, we have, you know, acupuncturists, we have all kinds of modalities of health. And so mine is use food to heal. And I'm using the same, Hippocrates said this a long time ago. He lived before the 1st century BC. Yeah. And he said this, let food be thy medicine and thy medicine be food. Food will heal us. We just have to choose to eat the right foods and say no to the foods that are damaging to us. So now this wonderful couple are spending $500 a month on refurbishing their house and doing whatever they want to do.
Yeah, fantastic. Go on vacation,
awesome.
enjoy
Go on vacation,
life.
can you imagine? Somebody give me $500 a month. I can think of a lot of ways to use that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
that is.
And we have to buy food anyway. I mean, why don't we buy the right stuff? And it's not more expensive. I have people say it's too expensive to use this way. No, my average client comes in and says I'm saving $200 a week on groceries.
Really?
Because we're not buying sugared cereal, we're not buying coffee, we're not buying sodas.
A
we're
week?
Not.
That's what they're saying?
Yeah, this is a family. Yeah, a family.
Yeah, family. We got a family of 6. So.
Yeah, kids. Yeah, family of 6.
Yeah.
Yes, because go look at how much a box of sugar cereal costs.
Wow.
It's expensive.
And it doesn't sustain you for a long time, so that's the thing. You have to eat
yeah.
again.
Kids can go through a box of sugar cereal in one breakfast, you know, a family of 4 kids, 4 kids. So.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much. This has been really helpful. I really value your time.
You know what? I have one more question I want you to touch on. 2 hot button items out there. You talked about the GMO, or not GMO, organic side. The other one's coconut oil. I know it's a big one out there, and I know it's really hot with you, but I just want to give us just a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'll tell you about coconut oil. Coconut oil is a saturated fat, and no one will deny that, but those that are trying to I'll say sell you on the product, but they're well-intentioned people, but they just don't have enough knowledge to talk about it. They're just repeating what they have heard. And they will say, but it's a medium chain triglyceride. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's a medium chain triglyceride. You have to understand that all oils, all fats are just long carbon chains, and they have hydrogens that are attached to the carbon atoms. And if you have taken up every single space that can be taken up with a hydrogen, then it's called a saturated fat. And to be able to utilize a saturated fat, you have to break a bond between the carbon atoms. And when you've used up all the bonds, so you don't have any double bonds between the carbon atoms and they're all single bonds, then when you break that, you're going to have free radical damage. Because now we have two carbons that are flying around missing an electron, and they're very angry, and they're going to get an electron. And so they ram into another cell and steal an electron so that they can be stable molecule or stable atom again. And that's the stealing of electrons is what free radical damage is. In coconut oil, all the carbons are singly bonded. So anytime you're going to utilize a molecule of coconut oil, you're going to have free radical damage happen. Whereas in what we call the unsaturated fats, like olive oil and peanut oil and safflower oil and canola oil and grapeseed oil and avocado oil, these have doubly bonded carbons. And so to be able to utilize those, because we have to use these fats for good health, we come in and we break one of the bonds. The carbon is still happy because when we break one of the bonds, we're bringing in a functional group. It's another molecule coming in to attach, and we can make a hormone out of it. We can make a steroid out of it so you don't have to have rheumatoid arthritic pain. And so in a coconut oil, these are well-intentioned people. They'll say, but you can heat it to high temperatures and it's safe. It won't oxidize. It actually does oxidize, but it's not going to be harmful. It is harmful. You say, but if you heat olive oil up, then you're going to oxidize that. No, actually you won't. All you have to do is just heat your olive oil, cook whatever you want, deep fat fry in olive oil or any of these unsaturated fats. Then turn off stove, let your oil just sit on the stove. Watch and see what happens to it. Does it turn into a solid or is it still a liquid?
Yeah.
It's still a liquid.
Mm-hmm.
Our saturated fats, which means they're saturated with hydrogen ions, the saturated fats are always solid at room temperature. Your coconut oil is the same as eating lard. It's the same as eating pork skin. Pick, these pork rinds, it is the same as eating bacon grease. It's all the same. It's a saturated fat. So it's just people don't know. They just don't know.
Gotcha.
So, coconut oil is not a good oil. Eat the unsaturated fats, the olive oil, the canola oil, the safflower oil, the peanut oil, the avocado oil, the pecan oil. There's lots of oils.
Well, I've seen now those coconut oil sprays. Does that change anything?
Well, the coconut oil sprays, you mean you spray the pan with?
Yeah, exactly.
That's like buttering the pan. You're putting it's just trying to keep things from sticking. You're getting very little of that. But people are actually putting into their coffee, they will put 2 big heaping spoons of
Coconut oil.
Yeah. Or they'll just say, I eat it off of a spoon. It's like, you're destroying your health. You're causing free radical damage. What does free radical damage do? It's cause cancer, and it is what causes us to age. Always free radical damage is the aging process.
Gotcha.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions?
No, I'm good. I just wanted that in there for sure. That's a hot button item, so I love your take on it, actually.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
We really appreciate your time.